Yo, welcome to Philosopher's Stoned. This episode is entirely different from our regular format. I wasn't going to talk about the coronavirus, really, besides what's on my Twitter. But me and my boy Dean had a great 2-hour discussion last night, covering a bunch of topics that are all umbrellaed under this COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm not going to give too long of an intro. But yeah, we get into some real good discussions here. And I think a lot of ideas were brought up that people need to be discussing. We need to be talking about this shit. We shouldn't just listen to the news and all that. I mean, if you strictly listen to the news, you might just be a fucking idiot and a lost cause. So that's on you. But, so let's just go ahead and get into it. Here it is, man. Here's the long hour and 45-minute discussion about COVID-19 and how it's affecting us and the world. Chilling.
So yeah, dude. So tell me about what's going on in fucking Texas, man. Because Oregon's like dragging its feet and weird as hell. I had an interesting conversation with the nurse practitioner last night it was in confidence, but there were some things I think I could say freely, but it was a confidential conversation. It was like a 3-way call between my girlfriend and her sister, who works here in Oregon at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of, because we had heard, there's so, as you know, man, there's so much crazy misinformation, disinformation. No one really knows what's going on. I heard that Texas is like suing California because people in California are trying to come to Texas and vice versa, and you don't know who's got the virus and who doesn't. First of all, I want to ask you one thing, point blank, straight up, just so we can see where we are. What do you think is happening with this virus?
So, at first, I just was like, complete and utter bullshit cover-up. Like, completely, like, I didn't entertain the fact that there was actually a virus at all. And now, it's so hard to pinpoint. I feel like it falls under every category that we're talking about. Population control, some type of cover-up for something more sinister that they don't want public, because everything that umbrellas under this will cause panic somehow. Like, if all of our favorite actors get caught for something or get outed for something, that might, since America is so driven by the media, not me, but we look up to these people. Motherfuckers look up to Tom Hanks. Like,
I know, dude, it's nuts. And his son.
Like, what the fuck? Yeah, like, I mean, Orange County's a great movie. Where's Colin? Where's Colin Hanks? What's he doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, but they have Chet talking. They have the fucking, they have him. They have the guy with the Illuminati chest tattoo talking. So, back to what I was saying, I feel like it's everything. I feel like it's a population control. It's some type of mass propaganda to kind of, and this is, people are trying to compare it to the past pandemics that have happened in the last like 10 years, like with the elections, like SARS and fucking,
talking about SARS and MERS and the H1N1,
swine flu and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
People are trying. I'm like, it was not even near that shit. Those were not near, like, whatever's happening now is so much.
You're saying that
bigger.
those previous so-called pandemics weren't nearly as effective or as powerful as this current one?
Yeah, and then that makes me think, are they just, like, it falls into the psychological operation, like, are they using the threat of biological warfare to put us under a psyop? Like, is that their weapon of the psyop? Like, instead of acid or fucking sleep deprivation, is the spread of a pandemic their psyop? Like, is that the weapon of the psyop? And I'm just like,
right.
Fuck. So it's like, I can't figure out what theory to follow up on. So you kind of have to follow up on every single one.
Right. Yeah. And it's a fractal. It fractals out. So like you, I didn't believe at first 3 weeks ago, a month ago, that there was a virus.
Yeah.
I thought it was all propaganda. And then I listened to some pretty interesting information. I looked at some really rad articles that, Zero Hedge, right? I don't know what you think about Zero Hedge or if you read Zero Hedge.
I skim it.
It's a strange rag, but I take a lot of it fairly seriously, but not too much. Mostly because it's all, every article is written by the pseudonym of Tyler Durden, which is
don't you love that? Don't you love
Fight
it
Club, and also there's that whole Tyler AI chaos thing. So it's like because of that, I take it with a grain of salt. But what I read was that there was that this whole thing, this COVID-19 was a biological weapon that was created in the United States. It was perfected in Canada. And then that there were scientists that were arrested at the border, customs agents arrested them with biological samples, and that those samples somehow got smuggled over to Wuhan, where it was finalized in the Wuhan Biological Testing Facility, which is within a kilometer of that open-air, godless, heathen, blood market. Those godless, heathen, disgusting, savage Chinese in their blood market, and that's the propaganda that really fucking took hold,
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing, okay, this is a biological weapon. It's a propaganda machine. It's working really well. And then I started realizing that there actually is a virus. And then I looked into what coronavirus is and saw that there's a whole family of viruses that are coronavirus. Not only those previous pandemics that you mentioned, but also the common cold, the common flu. Looked at the numbers. And, I mean, the flu kills 80,000 people in America a year alone. So the common flu fatality rate is dwarfing COVID-19 at a rate of fucking 3 to 1 on any given day. I don't care who you are. The common flu is going to kill people. And then I started looking at the massive mainstream media propaganda arm and how, what we're talking about is same thing with the swine flu back in the 70s, way before I was born, just a few years before I was born. In the 70s, there was the swine flu thing. And there were no confirmed cases of swine flu confirmed by the CDC or the WHO at all. But they still manufactured and mass-produced this vaccine, which caused shit tons of side effects and fucking ruined people's lives.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, what the fuck is really going on with this? And then I started learning that there's not just one COVID-19 strain, but at least two. That there's a sick strain and a fatal strain.
Oh shit! I didn't know.
Yeah, and that if you've gotten the sick strain, which is just a flu, it's a pretty severe flu, no doubt about it, then you're very likely at this point immune to any fatal strain. But like all coronaviruses, it's going to latch on and destroy someone's body if they already have a comorbidity like diabetes. Say you have COPD, chronic respiratory illnesses, things like that. If you already have pneumonia, it fills up your lungs and you fucking die really, really quick. But if you've just had this flu, this sick strain, then you're very likely at this point immune to the fatal strain. And then you look at the numbers of the people, right, in China and in Italy, and from what I come to understand, and I don't know if it's fucking totally true, but it's what I believe, is I believe that, I mean, we all know that they're going to hate that I say this, but China lies.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
China lies. They lie about shit.
There's like the things that I've been looking at today. So my neighbor over here, he lives here, but works out of Russia, basically. Goes back and forth. His wife and daughter are in Russia. And I was like, I haven't really heard much coming from Russia about this. And he was like, the Kremlin will never, ever, ever, ever report it, especially to where
I believe that.
we will know. And I was like, so instead of inflating the numbers like China and the US have done, they're just completely closed off to it all.
Right.
Which is like, because I was like, I know there's rural parts of Russia, obviously, fucking Siberia and shit, but like Moscow, I'm pretty sure is pretty heavily fucking populated. And if there's anything going on, it's going to hit there just as hard as it hits here. So my sister's in Seattle, and she told me, like, the coast up there, like the PNW, is getting hit real hard with it.
Mm.
Like, my sister was supposed to come back to Texas the first week of April, and she's like, there's no fucking way I can fly out now.
Okay.
And I was like, man, it's I don't know why, but why would it hit the coastals harder than Middle America? And is it? I haven't really done the numbers yet, but that just seems how it is. It's like New York, Seattle. I think Houston got hit pretty hard with it, and that's on the port.
I mean, the thing that I can only speculate on that why it would be so rampant on the coastal sides is because they're coastal,
Mm-hmm.
they're port bound, they're part of the trade routes. You know,
More
anyone
stuff
that's coming
in.
to or from is generally gonna, especially in a place like, so you got, you know, New York City. That's fucking, as East Coast, it's the biggest city in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not the biggest, but in the United States for sure. So it's no wonder that New York City right now is like the epicenter of the fucking crisis, because there is so much travel going to and from, and so you also got supply lines, ships, fucking supply lines.
Yeah.
Those supply lines aren't just unmanned vessels; those are full of people.
Yeah.
Plus, you got the cruise lines. Those cruise lines aren't going to go inland; they go to the coasts, things like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I know that this winter I got pretty fucking sick at one point. Like, I didn't have the flu, but I had a pretty brutal cold.
Yeah.
And my daughter did too. My daughter's had an upper respiratory infection for about, I don't know, a month and a half. She's finally over it now. And so in a weird way, man, maybe this sounds crazy to you, but I think everybody already has it. I think it's been here for a long time. And there's people in the medical profession that agree. They all think it's been here for a long time.
I mean, when I get sick for 24 hours. That's it. But in the end of November, I got sick for like fucking 4 days. I still went to work. I only had to call to work for one day, the first day, because I got up and I was like, yo, fuck it. I can't even fucking walk. Like, I feel like I drank 2 gallons of Jim Beam the night before. Like, it was bad. Like, I felt horrible. But the next day, it was just a regular cold. I had a little sinus infection. I took some amoxicillin and fucking knocked it out, and I was good. But right. I have a really strong immune system. Like, I know that I take care of myself. So I know that I knew, like, at first I was like telling people, because everyone I know was asking me. They're all just like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I was like, I don't think anyone should work. I was trying to calm my friends down. Like, I was like, y'all aren't 65. You aren't diabetic. You don't have an autoimmune disease. Just don't even fucking worry about it. It'll be over just like the swine flu and SARS and all that shit was over really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm trying to find this one thing I fucking saw earlier.
So, I mean, one thing that I'm always asking myself when there's any kind of major news story that is all about gloom and doom and death and destruction and ends up becoming a really divisive thing between the classes in America, especially, is who benefits? You know, who benefits from, say there was a pandemic, say this thing is the actual pandemic and you and I are just delusional people in denial.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who would benefit from this would be technocracies, the techno class,
mm-hmm.
the Bill Gates people.
I was just about to say, the guy who owns the patent.
And Bill Gates has $100 billion partnership with who's now come to be called the granddad, like America's grandfather of this disease, the guy who's leading everyone with the safety and the assurances, Dr. Fauci.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates have $100 billion fucking deal with the flu vaccine production company to make this flu vaccine. And at first, Dr. Fauci comes on 2-3 fucking weeks ago, maybe a month ago, talking about how this is going to be a slow growth thing, and then we can contain it and all this stuff. And this is the Dr. Fauci that was with every presidential administration going back to, I think, Reagan.
Yeah, he's been around. I've seen that guy's face for a long time.
So he's a fucking doctor for sure, but he's also a career politician. Like, let's not kid ourselves here.
Yeah, I mean, when you're tied in with that, it's just there's no getting around it. Like, you're part of it.
Right. And so now Dr. Fauci is saying that this is going to be coming back seasonally. So what we're dealing with essentially is an unseen enemy, the perfect enemy, the enemy that is within everyone already and could strike at any time. It's going to, as it already is, destroy our economy and our way of life as we know, and it cannot be vanquished. And worse than that, it's going to keep coming around. So this is the new way.
That reminds me of that whole fucking fake disclosure thing that was that fucking Will Cox and all those motherfuckers talk about all the time, like an unknown threat. Like, did you watch Watchmen?
No.
All right.
I don't watch anything, man. I'm so spared. I don't watch shit.
So the plot is to unite the world, to bring a whole world, one world government, NWO.
Yeah, globalist.
We need a threat that we can't see, that we can't beat, that we've never encountered before. Which most of the fringe community was like, oh yeah, aliens are gonna pop up, and we're not gonna know what the fuck to do. On some Battle of LA type shit, we're gonna get 10 days of darkness with a giant ship above the sun, and we're gonna be fucked for 10 days, and then after 10 days, who fucking knows? Is it going to be fucking Mad Max? Am I going to have to fucking beat up old people for gas? Like, what's going to happen?
Not impossible, dude.
So
we're thinking about, we got Bill Gates, Dr. Fauci are their bed buddies in this thing. They're promising us the world. They're also telling us that the world is going to end. And Bill Gates is talking about how this lockdown needs to be global for a minimum of 6 to 10 weeks. And for a long time, dude, I was convinced, and I still kind of have a little bit of money in the bank as far as I was betting on between April 6th and April 10th that we'll start getting the signal from mainstream media that all is well and people can go back to work and the economy is going to slowly come back up in a big, what they're calling is a V-shaped victory.
Yeah. As
far as went down and now we're going to spike back up. But now the talk is that we're going to, have like this W-shaped thing. We're going to go up and then, it's going to come back. It's going to come back. We're going to go back down and we're going to end up in this big zigzag for the next fucking who knows how long. And the reason between April 6th and April 10th is that April 6th would be exactly 30 days, that the initial $2 billion coronavirus relief package was initially established, which was set to basically there was 30 days contingency as far as this $2 billion had to be assessed and distributed to various different departments within 30 days or the money goes back to the Treasury. And so my suspicion was that by April 6th would be 30 days, that once all that money was established and everyone got their fucking pockets full, they would say, okay, everything's back up and up and up. But I think what happened was that because the media owns the government and the government owns the media, they can never let a good crisis go to waste. They can never let this shit slide. There's so much money. There is so much money going around right now. It's insane. And so now we have everyone, this is a two-part kind of thing, right? Overnight, seemingly overnight, almost the entire world just said, okay, I'll stay home. I'll stay home. I won't hang out with my friends anymore. Out of this fear. And the fear is the virus, The actual fear, the reaction is, in my mind, that's what the real virus is. And I think that's what these higher up people actually know, is that the fear is the virus. And it seems like almost within a matter of days, the entire world just relinquished their autonomy and their sovereignty to the controlling powers to do exactly what they're told, which is to stay the fuck home. And it's crushing people's lives. There's tons and tons of businesses that are never going to recover. And then they promise us, a $1,200 check in a few weeks. And then you see this $2 trillion relief package that was just passed, the largest, epidemiological, biological, fucking national emergency relief package, $2 trillion. And on the surface, yeah, okay, that looks like a bailout, right? It looks like the government's going to, of course, through the Fed, print up a bunch of money, just create money out of nothing, like those alchemists tend to do, and then give it to everybody with no strings attached. But if you actually read the stimulus package, it's all loans. It's all loans that need to be, of course, repaid at some point. So it's not free money. And then I start thinking about what this actually is. On the surface, it looks like this. Okay, and if I can accept a loan, fine, whatever. At least I'm going to start my business again. But really what it is, if you look at exactly what it is, dude, and maybe I'm just crazy, but It's $2 trillion invested to make sure that we slaves get it through our fucking thick skulls that this is the new way, that there is no recovery. There's going to be no recovery. We're through the door completely. The turnstile has locked behind us, and there's no going back. Yeah. Everything is different now. They're making sure that that's the way it's going to be.
So what I just saw today was that someone was saying the stimulus package, the only way, you know how everyone's promised $1,200 if they worked for the last year and paid their taxes? Mm-hmm. The only way to get that money is to accept the new form of currency, which is
the
crypto.
Digital currency.
Exactly. And I've been hearing about this shit for like 3 years about how we're going to hit a cultural shift. Money is not going to be money no more. And this is like the perfect big fucking disaster to make. So think about how fragile this is like the big realization for me about America, really. I'm just focusing on North America and the population and the mass civilian population. They're so scared, they're so terrified, and they're so vulnerable because how do you break down a strong, like if you were going to demolition a building, you gotta make it weak first before you throw the wrecking ball in there and knock it down. Mm-hmm. That's how they do it, to make us vulnerable and say, yeah, give us a fucking vaccine, give us digital currency. And like, most people aren't cash people. Like a lot of people I know don't ever have cash. It's never cash. So they're going to be like, well, all my money's in the bank anyway. I never see cash anyway. I pay my bills with a debit card online or online bill pay, all that type of shit. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? It'll be fine. And then I'm like, so that adds into the thing I was saying earlier, how it's just an umbrella of things they're doing with this crisis. You can't let a good crisis go to waste. Let's pull every rug out from under everybody. Let's make them vulnerable in every corner. They're going to be worried about their health. They're going to be worried about their money. They're going to be worried about their future. It's all
of that is going to be tied directly into a digital currency. Mm-hmm. It won't just be money. It'll be money that also has where you live, how many kids you have, if you have any, your social credit score, which is going to be established for sure if it isn't already. I mean, they're already consider like the car insurance, and have you ever heard of that company called Credit Karma?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all based on social credit. Social credit, as far as you're a good person, you drive in the speed limit, you slow down when you're supposed to, you pay all your bills on time. All those things are said to by these companies to allow you to save money, and that's the hook right there. Is everyone wants to save money, and so you basically give access to these fucking websites and these companies to judge how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. And all that stuff is going to be tied into a social credit, which will be your digital currency. So if by some reason, say you're a fucking entrepreneur and you make something that someone really wants, and maybe you bring in $500,000 a year, but you're a son of a bitch. And maybe you have a blog on the side that's totally red-pilled out, and you got a YouTube channel that's getting demonetized because you're basically pretending to be Alex Jones.
Exactly.
Well, they can just access your fucking digital currency and shut all your shit down. They can shut down your power. They can shut down your internet. They could say you violated our terms of contract, which no one reads. No one reads the EULAs.
Yeah.
And they just say click agree, and then all of a sudden you might be a fucking millionaire. But if you're not on board psychologically, socially, then you're fucking done. You're donezo. You're really disenfranchised.
So it's like a different Skynet, like the fucking Terminator shit. Like it's like instead of robots everywhere, everything in your life can be ended by a button.
Everything.
Like instead of bill collectors calling you, they let you know. If they're even going to let us know, hey, you didn't pay these bills, you got all this debt, you're done.
Yeah. Or, God forbid you have neighbors that hate you who knows people that work in City Hall, or you have an ex-wife that, maybe you're going through a divorce, and because there's war on men. Maybe you're a white male in your middle ages and you're going through a divorce, God forbid, and you live in a progressive city like Austin or Portland.
Yeah.
And I mean, fuck, you think you're going to be able to hold on to your social credit at that point when they see where you're going? Because they'll track you to your strip clubs. They'll track you to the bar. They'll track you to your homie's house who they've already been watching, who fucking sells meth or whatever, like they already know where you're going, and they're just going to build cases on you. So, I mean, I think that's further down the road. I think a lot of this stuff is a little further down the road, but what I don't think is further down the road, honestly, at all, is that what I'm hearing and what we're being told in the mainstream media, and this is something I actually do believe, is that there are hospital boats, Italy has an ice rink that's a morgue now. There's people that are petitioning people online to donate money to stay open so that they can provide temporary mobile freezers for the piles of dead bodies that are going to be arriving from COVID patients. So, and what I learned last night talking to the medical professional person is that everyone at this particular hospital is being cross-trained. They're all being cross-trained to know how to basically stick tubes down people's throats to keep them on respirators and try to keep them alive, because they're anticipating a massive surge in confirmed cases. So we'll table that for a second. But the other thing is that the testing itself in a lot of places, I don't know if it's happening here, the testing that I've heard in a lot of places is absolutely littered with false positives. That's how China's numbers went through the roof initially. Then they started retesting on a different scale. They changed the way they test, and now they changed the way they test, so they changed the numbers.
So that's what I was reading yesterday. I think it was a doctor who was like, these test kits are all false positives. So anyone that comes in with also it's fucking allergy season. It's fucking March.
Yeah.
Especially in Texas, our cedar and our pollen, every year. I didn't have allergies as a kid, but when I was 23, 24, I started to get fucking allergies. I don't know what. I've heard that you can, as you grow, you might get some fucking allergies just by being in the city for your whole life.
Right.
And I tell people, do not go to the hospital unless you feel like you're fucking dying. R.I.P. Joe Diffie, Pickup Man. I don't know if you know that song, fucking John Deere Green. He died today, and they said it was coronavirus stuff. He was 61. 61-year-olds die all the fucking time.
They do. And especially if they're, and this is what makes me think that, okay, there is a virus and it is fucking with people and it is killing people. But, and it is pretty fucking rampant. Apparently it's highly contagious, although there's some studies that completely disprove it's contagious at all. Mm-hmm. But as far as one thing I've noticed in the language of all of the mainstream narrative is that what they're saying is these people are all dying of corona. They're all dying of corona. But if you actually read the articles and not just the headlines, you'll see that they never really say directly as a result of coronavirus. I know that here in Oregon, there's only been one person who was classified as, a death certificate stamped like Corona-19. That's what killed this person. Every other word, dude, is due to complications or related to.
That's what they said about Joe Diffie. They're like, complications of coronavirus. And it's like, okay, 90s country singers fucking partied. This dude was he was in the crew with Sammy Kershaw and shit. Those motherfuckers did a shitload of drugs in the 90s. I'm sure at 61, the fact that he's made it to 61 is surprising. He's gonna have some complications in life, in health problems in general by the time he's 61. I'm fucking 33 and I feel like I'm fucking 61 sometimes when I'm fucking just working. I'm like goddamn, all those years of fucking drinking and drugging did not do good on my body.
Sure.
So it's are they how easy is it for them to just say they died of coronavirus?
Right.
Like, how easy is it? How easy is it for them to just be like, every death that pops up is coronavirus? So that brings me back to what we were first seeing with the celebrities and how everyone was like, why is it just celebrities? And of course, that shit lit off in my head. I was like, so I think I say burn the fucking rich, kill the fucking billionaires. I don't feel like there's any reason for anyone to ever be a billionaire. There's no reason for it. What do you need $1 billion for?
I know.
What I'm saying? What do you need it for? So I was like,
well, to start companies and do, offshore stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
to protect your class. To protect your class.
To protect the 1%.
Well, and also, to protect your whether it's 1% or fucking 20%. This is one thing where I kind of lean more libertarian. I think if you have the ability to make $1 billion, you should be allowed to make $1 billion. Mm-hmm. I also think that you should be not forced to pay into a tax system. But if capitalism can allow you, if you can work capitalism in such a way to be able to make $1 billion to protect your interest, your family, to start your own fucking empire, then I think you probably should. But what we know is that money corrupts, power corrupts, money equals power, power corrupts. Absolutely. You can't have that kind of a class of people and have them all be benevolent. That's what we thought about Bill Gates for the last 20 years. We thought Bill Gates was this benevolent fucking person. And a lot of people still do think that Bill Gates is this benevolent person. But this is a person, Bill Gates, who's been talking about a massive, drastic reduction in population for about the past 15 fucking years. He's a depopulist. He wants to depopulate the nation, or the world especially. I'm going to try to see if I can bring this fucking article and do a split screen with you.
So, I just saw one of the fucking royal family guys. I think it's Philip that got diagnosed?
Right.
So, I think I saw this on, are you familiar with that dude, Kaninigan, on YouTube?
No.
So he brought up, right as it started, he brought up Corona in Latin is crown. And I was like,
oh yeah,
that could just be a coincidence at first, because I coming at it as a skeptic. I'm like, especially YouTubers, I'm like, I'm one of them too. I get it. I was like, that's really weird that they named it coronavirus, right? Right?
I know, right?
That's a weird name. That's a weird fucking name.
Yeah. I don't know if can you see, is there a fucking article on your...
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Can you see if I scroll on this thing?
Yeah, I can see it. It's good.
Okay. Yeah, because I can't tell if you can or not, but it's all good. So this is from 2 weeks ago, March 16th, 2020, from Collective Evolution. Study suggests potential high rate of false positives for some COVID-19 testing. And the abstract basically is false positive rate among asymptomatic infected individuals in close contact with COVID-19 patients. Researchers found that there may be a substantial issue with testing methods, leading a high number of false positive readings. As indicated in the abstract of the study, those who were asymptomatic, which means no signs, and who were in close contact with COVID-19 patients were likely to be tested positive falsely, as outlined in the study. In the close contact of COVID-19 patients, nearly half or even more of the asymptomatic infected individuals reported in the active nucleic acid test screening might be false positives. The results, when the infection rate of the close contacts and the sensitivity of specificity of reported results were taken at the point estimates, the positive predictive value of the active screening was only 19.67%. So 19.67, leaning towards 20%, were actually positive. Actually, in contrast, the false positive rate of positive results was 80.33%. The multivariate probabilistic sensitivity analysis, that's a fucking mouthful, supported the base case findings with a 75% probability for false positive rates of positive results over 47%. So that I thought was interesting. That was 2 weeks ago. There's some other stuff in this article that's really interesting. The test is not binary. negative/positive, and it has an arbitrary cutoff. So at some point, they just stop counting the tests. The quantity of RNA does not correlate with illness. If negative means uninfected and positive means infected, then people went from infected to uninfected and back again, sometimes several times. How does that happen?
So it seems like it's kind of going back to what you said, how it's like we already have it.
Yeah, it's like, already there. Everyone already has at least some. Yeah, everyone has some degree of a coronavirus in them because we're constantly fighting off colds. And for that matter, just to get this out of the way, it's not bad to be sick.
No, it's
good. Actually a good thing.
It's good, yeah.
Your body is fighting off. When you have a fever, your body's working in fifth gear to fucking get that shit out of your body. When you have a runny nose, that is the body's cleaning mechanism to get your shit out.
Mm-hmm.
However, that said, there are fucking people that are dying of this stuff. But what I found really interesting is that when some people go to the hospital, they'll go to the hospital, and I don't know what tests are being done now, at least in this state where I'm in Oregon. But from what I heard from credible sources, super credible sources that unfortunately I can't name because I want to be respectful of the confidence that I heard, was that they are doing specific tests for COVID-19. But you have to meet a specific criteria to get that test, which means you have to be showing extreme signs. You have to have a fever, high fever. You have to have shortness of breath. You have to have nausea. You have to have a really gnarly dry cough to even get seen. And then once you get seen, they do the influenza A and B test, your common flu. And if those test negative and you're still symptomatic, then they do the COVID-19 test, which is apparently this one that we're looking at. And then at that point, when you test positive for that, this is what I heard that was really bizarre that started to fuck with my head. Is as soon as you get tested positive for the COVID-19, after having gone through the screenings for influenza A and B, at least in some hospitals in Oregon, this is what I heard, this is crazy, as soon as you test positive, you get put into a fucking hospital bed, and within hours, you are basically dying.
God, that's more terrifying than anything. Within
hours of going to the hospital, you're fucking dying. Your lungs fill up with fluid, and they got to put a tube down your throat and a respirator on you to keep you alive. And I'm not saying that all the hospitals are infecting people with shit. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's some strange anomaly between initially showing symptoms, going to a hospital, having been confirmed for not being sick with the common flu, and then within hours, you're basically on your deathbed after arriving at the hospital. There's something interesting there, and I don't know what it is. And I didn't want to grill this individual with a bunch of pointed questions because this is this person's livelihood. This person is not like us. You know, they're not people who, this person isn't someone who is skeptical of the system and believes in massive technocratic conspiracies to fucking destroy humankind, like you and me and a lot of people we know.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to bum this person out, but what this person was telling me was that, you know, when they go to the fucking hospital, within hours, they're like ready to be put in an incubator, and the chances of survival are less than good. In fact, they almost always are just about on their deathbed. That said, only a handful of people in Oregon have actually died. They just get terminally, you know, fucking mortified with tubes in their throats and their lungs fill up with water. So I don't know if there's something that happens upon entry to the hospital after showing symptoms.
Like, are they administered, like you said, they're probably the nurses that are dealing with these people aren't giving them something that kills them quicker knowingly.
I don't want to say that. The idea of that is not, in my mind, outside of the realm of possibility, though.
Exactly. Like, are they? Because, I mean, so the vaccine thing. Okay, so the testing, that was so bizarre. The first day I saw, like, what they do to test, it was like they shove some shit way back in your throat or your nose or something.
Yeah, they do 3 levels of testing in your nose and your throat, and they try to get some stuff from the very bottom of your lungs, but you have to be able to cough that up for them to test it.
Damn.
It's called spatum or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure, but
the little like it was like a tutorial, like pictures like of someone getting the test. Like I was like, that seems very, very harsh. Very harsh for a test. Like, wouldn't you just be able to test saliva? I'm not going near no fucking swab or nothing like that, no matter fucking what. No one is fucking. They probably already have my DNA at some point. I'm not gonna.
Well, they do because they've already taken your blood at birth.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you already got it. I'm not doing no testing. I'm not doing no. I've been trying to tell people, like you said, they need all these symptoms. So a lot of people are calling CDC based on their allergy symptoms. They're getting, they can't breathe. Like they're not that they can't breathe. They have a little shortness of breath. They, are congested. Little respiratory problems. Really regular allergy season shit. Like every single March and April, Texas deals with it. You got 1 million people buying Zyrtec because they can't fucking function with all the allergies.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn, what a time. What a time to do whatever it is that is going on. What a time to do it. This is the perfect time. I don't think this would fly in the heart of the summer.
Dude, well, this makes me think about a few other things that I want to talk about in just a minute. But since we're talking about the testing and the possibility of vaccines, this is like the last part of that same article from Collective Evolution. Start it here. An interesting post from Dr. Paul Offit on his Facebook page outlines some interesting statistics I feel people should consider. While I feel Paul is not very informed on the subject of vaccines, he makes some interesting observations here. Now, this is all the writer. This is the author of this article's words, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
But he quoting Dr. Paul Offit, who is Dr. Paul Offit? I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to go get dizzy on this thing. But anyway, quote, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as of March 7th, 2020, 36 million to 51 people have suffered influenza. 370,000 to 670,000 have been hospitalized, and 22,000 to 55,000 have died from the disease. To put these numbers in perspective, let's look at countries that have dealt with COVID-19. China, where COVID-19 was originated, this is the propaganda, has reportedly roughly 3,000 deaths. The population of China is about 1.4 billion, 3 times greater than the United States. If we suffer an equivalent proportion of deaths, then 1,000 Americans will die from COVID-19, 1/20th to 1/50th of the number who have died from influenza. So it's a 1/20, 1/50th fatality rate according to regular flu. Italy has reported roughly 2,000 deaths. Of course, this was 2 weeks ago. As we're hearing, these numbers are doubling every couple of days. So these numbers are already old news. 2,000 dead in Italy from COVID-19, and as a result, has shut down the country. Only grocery stores and pharmacies remain open. Italy has a population of 60 million, about 1/5 of the U.S. population. If the U.S. suffers an equivalent proportion of deaths, then 10,000 Americans will die of COVID-19, about 1/2 to 1/5 of the number of deaths from influenza. And this article goes on with what to consider. As with anything, it's important to not fall into the collective fear and panic around the virus. Even if cases can be serious, panic and fear will not help anything or anyone, since the symptoms so closely resemble the flu. It's possible that many cases heard around the world are actually flu cases and not COVID-19. This might suggest that it's actually more difficult to get than the mainstream media is suggesting. So my thoughts on that is exactly that there are, and what I've heard from a lot of people, a lot of doctors talking about this, is that there are actually hospitals that are considering, from what I understand, if there's a hospital that is full of suspected or not, but confirmed COVID-19 cases, and someone goes in there suffering a heart attack, and they, for some reason, test them for coronavirus, and they have coronavirus as well, but they die of the heart attack, then that death is considered that death is thrown on the pile of confirmed Corona-19 related to and due to complications of Corona-19 deaths.
The complications of coronavirus. That's going to be
even though the person died of a heart attack.
Exactly.
Or died of pneumonia.
So there's another country guy who named John Prine. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's old. He's fucking brilliant, insanely good, and he's super fucking old. And today, I don't think that it said anything about coronavirus, but it said someone from his family or something said that he's in really bad shape. Now, this guy he's 73. He looks like he's suffered from strokes and stuff like that already.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as he dies, if he dies in the next week or a few days, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to say complications of coronavirus.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not. There's just no way.
And of course, a little further down the road, and they'll tell you right then in the moment that he will have died a hero.
Mm-hmm.
All of these deaths.
I just pulled
are
it up.
All being canonized into this hero level.
Yeah, so he's hospitalized with COVID-19 symptoms. So his situation is critical. So even though he's 73 years old and he looks like he's had some serious heart problems maybe or something like that, I'm not too familiar with his health past, but dude.
Would you say that it's safe to say that he has probably a compromised immune system?
Of course.
A little bit worse off than someone who's, say, 40?
I think if you've lived in a major city with pollution your entire life, you're going to have a compromised immune system. You're going to be predisposed to it,
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be... They laid the groundwork for this so well that... So that brings me... I want to bring up something else. So I never watch these Trump videos these Trump news things,
I'm disappearing for just a minute.
All right,
but keep talking. I can hear you.
All right, cool. So I never watch the Trump newscasts where he comes on and makes a fucking conference or start anything or all his little rants and shit. But the ones that I have caught, I'm not going to watch a 30-minute video of that motherfucker. I just don't have the patience or the attention span to do it. But the clips I've seen, he will not answer. All he does is attack the journalist that asks him a question. And the questions aren't necessarily trying to incriminate him or, put him in the cross, put him on the spot. It's just it's like the split population of the left and the right.
Mm-hmm.
The right.
Well, he's not helping anything. He's he's filth.
It's like, dude, and that brings me back to actually, I haven't even brought it up yet. Well, I want to get into it though. The fucking Q thing. So it's like, so QAnon is a complete fucking game. It's a giant government LARP, in my opinion.
It's a huge LARP. I know some people that just fucking, it's the Bible.
Dude.
They worship.
My God. And it's researchers that I've fucked with before. Like researchers like I can't think. I'm not going to name some of their names, but they I'm like, what the fuck? You fell into this, dude? Like, you are getting duped, or are you I just can't figure it out. But then I think about the population. So we have the left and the right, and then we kind of have the middle. And 2016 when he got elected, it was left and right, and then for the first year it was definitely left and right. But now when that's coming towards the end, I've noticed there's a middle neutral ground. Some of these Republicans are like, there's no wall. What the fuck? Where's our goddamn wall? Like, you said you were gonna build a wall. And
there's some there's lefties, there's left leaning people that are like, this fucking Me Too shit is out of control. This SJW shit is out of control. Like, we got to take some sort of responsibility for our lives. I think you're right. There is a weird gray state emerging.
So,
but it's not big enough to make any difference at this point.
I think is the Q LARP is it? I feel like it's targeted. It's it's targeting, like, the people that would fall into it were people that wouldn't choose a side before, and were just kind of in the middle. And now that they have a LARP that they can fall into and trust and follow, like the fucking Bible, this whole "the storm is upon us" shit, like you can't. So I'm just gonna fucking say his name, Jordan Sather. So he keeps saying, first off, fuck him, and I will beat the shit out of that motherfucker if I ever see him. I
know you're a fighting guy. We talked about this.
I'm not a fighting guy. I'm not. I'm really not. Like, well, maybe I have a little bit of aggression, but
well, push comes to shove. You
yeah,
gotta stand
exactly. Like, so he's like this. You can't stop what's coming. This whole thing, like, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. Q is fucking Superman, or Q is fucking. He's the answer. Q is the answer. Like,
right.
I'm like, everything they're giving us, every avenue that they're pushing on us, it's targeted for a certain group of population, certain
ideology.
Certain ideologies. Like, the people, there's so many people who are just like, I just want to live my life and I don't care about politics at all. I don't want to deal with this shit at all. Where do they go? Like, where do they stand? And when are they going to pick a side? When are they going to be? They're going to be forced to pick a side.
When their emotions are manipulated just to the right level. And this is the whole thing about what I think about Q is, for one thing, I don't think it's a human being. I think it's an AI.
I think definitely.
I think it's an AI, and I think it is generally it's a right leaning, freedom leaning kind of ideology that it sort of attracts. And in my opinion, it's a massive smokescreen. It's distraction. It's look over there.
Yeah.
Look over here. The white hats are going to come in. And what if I could say about the people that are saying the storm is coming? I absolutely agree that a storm is coming, but it's not what Q audience.
I think the storm is the cultural shift.
The storm is coming, dude, and it is gonna be brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not anything at all what the fucking Q audience thinks. There are no fucking white hats.
Yeah,
there are none.
There is no white hats.
There are no white hats. The only white hats are. If there has to be a white hat, it's people like you and me.
Yeah.
And the people that we talk to, that we can relate to, and the people that we can share with. And I guess that's the whole. If you want to get meta about it, that's QAnon. Whatever. There are no fucking white hats in government that's going to come and bail out the working class soldier. There are none. It's going to come down to money. It's all about money.
Yeah.
And eventually money will not matter. The only thing that will matter will be fucking water, gasoline, and bullets. And the thing that's happening, that there is a fucking war coming. And it's already here.
That sounds like the new title for the Mad Max reboot. Water, gasoline, and bullets.
Homeboy, it is going to be Mad Max.
Yeah, that's my wife. My wife's never seen Mad Max.
Have you seen military convoys going through Texas?
No.
Do you ever watch that fucking guy, Richie from Boston?
I don't.
On YouTube?
No, I haven't.
You got to check that guy out, man. He's a white hatter, I don't think he's a QAnon guy, but he's one of those guys that's like doesn't give a shit. He's just out there. This guy, my girl and I nicknamed him Rambo because he's kind of like Rambo, but he's uploading fucking videos that people are sending him.
Is he the one in LA? Is he the one in LA?
No, he's in Boston. He's Richie from Boston.
I saw a dude in LA that was.
But he's driving around all over the country right now, so he could be in LA. But
it could be. Yeah, he was. This guy was. It was like on a train track. It was like overpass. He was on the overpass, and the train track was below, and it was just tank. Dude,
there's shit tons of those videos, and I mean, there people that I know here in Portland said that they're fucking driving around outside of the city and seeing fucking just convoys on trains just moving around.
The only thing I've seen
is these are patrol vehicles with generators on the back, and so. This is what is going on. I want to show you something crazy right here. Can you still see this screen?
Yeah, I can.
Or am I split screen? Vaccine reaction?
Yeah, you're still split
screen. Okay, so this was today, an article that came out today, Sunday, March 29, 2020. And of course, I want to preface this, as we already know, this entire article could be fake. Not as far as it's fake news, but this could be something that's just for me to see.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been
we
thinking
know
about
that
that too.
internets can be hacked. We know that people's fucking eyes and their brains can be whatever. We know that I'm leaving the probability or the possibility, not probability, but the possibility, however slim it might be, that this is a fake article. This is a white hat publication, thevaccinereaction.org. But U.S. Marines and Navy prepare to executive pandemic plan as questions resurface about coronavirus. Published February 20th and republished yesterday or today. February 20th,
That's
2020.
pretty early. That's pretty early in this shit, kind of.
This was over a month ago.
Yeah.
Okay, responding to the coronavirus outbreak in China, where tens of thousands of citizens suspected of being infected with COVID-19 have been detained and involuntarily taken to quarantine camps. So I'm not going to read this entire article because, dude, it is like, look how long this shit goes. It goes all the way down. But what I will do is I will go to, because I was just like looking at all the citations. This is an article that's not bullshit. There are fucking 144 citations on this article, as far as there are 144 independent sources that were basically dissected in order to create this article. So we're going to go all the way down. Let's see, where is that fucking...
Seems like some AI made the article.
You know, it could be, dude. It fucking could be. Where the hell is that? There's 144... Well, in any case, let's see here. I didn't bring that one up, but I got it. Okay, yeah, so I was right. I was right the whole time. Okay, so yeah, this thing here, U.S. prepare for fucking pandemic plan. Pandemic plan. Think about those words, all right? Execute pandemic plan as questions you service about blah, 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 blah. Going down here to... Responding to coronavirus outbreak, COVID-19, thousands of citizens in China have been detained and voluntarily taken to quarantine camps. On February 1st, 2020, an executive order was issued by the U.S. on February 1st, 2020. So 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago. An executive order was issued by the U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff, directing the U.S. Northern Command to implement the DoD's global campaign plan for pandemic and infectious diseases. On February 12, 2020, orders were sent to the U.S. Marine Corps and Navy, directing geographic combatant commanders to execute their pandemic plans in response to the NCOV outbreak, novel coronavirus. The U.S. Marine Corps directive told combat commanders to review, update, and validate existing disease containment plans and policies in order to implement procedures for response, isolation, quarantine, restriction of movement, and community-based intervention, and to become familiar with authority to declare a public health emergency, restrict movement, quarantine and isolate, and coordinate with federal, state, local, and military treatment facilities and public health emergency officials. The U.S. Navy directive stated that the DoD will continue to follow CDC guidance and comply with local public health authorities during this outbreak. As of February 18, 2020, there had been 75,198 cases of COVID detected globally and 2,009 deaths, with all but 1,013 cases and 5 deaths occurring in China. The U.S. now has 29 confirmed cases being treated on military bases or in biocontainment facility. So, what we're learning here is that 2 months ago, there were orders from the DoD to basically coordinate plans for the Navy and the Marine Corps to update validate existing disease containment plan policies in order to implement procedures for response, isolation, quarantine, restriction of movement, and community-based intervention. Okay, so the next thing that I want to show you is this. Now, this affects me to a certain degree. Because I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but I'm a mailman. I work for the post office.
Oh, okay.
I go door to door every single day. Okay. The Postal Service's surprising role in surviving the doomsday. This is an article that was written on March 25th, 4 days ago. At least it was published. The little-known Postal Plan, which dates back to the Clinton era, charges mail carriers with delivering critical supplies, like vaccines, as a last resort. It's a pretty big article, but one thing that I want to show you, which is pretty crazy. Let's see where we are here.
I see that out of money by June line.
Well, this is the funny thing. So the U.S. Postal Service and your friendly neighborhood postal carriers have always had a unique, though largely unknown, role in the nation's doomsday planning. Through much of the Cold War, the Postal Service would have helped register the nation's dead, following blah, 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 blah. So this is kind of talks about how the post office did a lot of stuff. How basically the post office has been used as an outreach branch of the government, because the Postal Service is the only body that the government has that can literally get to every single house every single day, any day of the week. All right? Your politicians, your canvassers, your candidates, your State Department people, none of those people are going to go to your house the way that every single day your mailman goes to your house.
Right.
All right. And so this was all basically enacted right after the Clinton administration, known in government parlance as simply the Postal Plan or the Postal Option. The Medical Countermeasures Program was a key part of the massive worst-case scenario planning updated after the 9/11 attacks under the broad umbrella of contingency planning known as continuity of government or continuity of operations. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I've done a little bit of looking at it, and it's real shit. And its most secretive level, Enduring Constitutional Government, ECG, the series of plans and special authorities that indicate how the three branches of government would, quote, execute constitutional responsibilities in a catastrophic emergency. While W. Bush and Clinton-era executive orders outlined ECG remain classified, the Obama-era postal plan has been publicly released, although it's little known even inside the government. In parentheses, one former senior top Trump administration official contacted about the postal plan in recent days was surprised to learn of its very existence, despite being intimately involved with continuity planning. So this is kind of like a under the table, in the drawer kind of last-ditch effort. Let's see here. Going down to skipping ahead a little bit, as Obama's December 2009 order reads, because Obama basically reenacted and reestablished this postal plan as an option, as the postal option in the order of a catastrophic event. Talking about our friend Obama here, Black Jesus. As Obama's December 2009 order reads, the U.S. Postal Service has the capacity for rapid residential delivery of medical countermeasures for self-administration across all communities in the United States. The postal plan would involve all available USPS employee volunteers, and before they were sent out door to door, each would be provisioned with a prophylaxis and barrier protection for themselves as well as their families. A plan that might be easier to achieve in theory than in reality, given the current supply chain problems. The plan notes that it's critical for the Postal Service to overstaff its medical countermeasure program. The USPS will recruit a greater number of employee volunteers than the number of delivery assignments required during detailed delivery planning to mitigate staffing shortfalls among employee volunteers. To ready itself for delivering the medical supplies, the Postal Service will first suspend all regular postal delivery in the targeted zone, as well as retail and mail processing operations in the affected delivery zone. Local, state, and federal law enforcement, including the Postal Service's own postal inspectors, which, by the way, are bigger and older than the FBI, would be pressed into service for 12-hour shifts, protecting the medical supplies and distribution, vaccines, or self-administered tests. One law enforcement escort vehicle would be assigned to each truck distributing supplies. Now, this is where it gets critical. One law enforcement escort, so one armed escort vehicle with trained armed agents would be assigned to each truck distributing supplies, vaccines, self-administered tests, and a law enforcement officer, an armed agent, would accompany each postal carrier, me, on his or her rounds distributing the medicine, vaccines. Using specific authorities that are part of what's known as the emergency support function, the National Guard would be activated if necessary to supplement security personnel. So if they can't get enough cops or military guys, they'll enlist the National Guard. Right. So for their part, the postal carriers knocking at America's doors would look like the emergency room doctors treating COVID patients around the world. We would be outfitted with N95 disposable respirators or masks, protective gloves, and disposable clothing. Volunteer carriers, they say volunteer, but what they mean by volunteer is brand new hires who don't have any rights yet because either they're skeptical about the union or they just don't know their rights, or people that are so in love with their fucking jobs that they want to do overtime every single day. Volunteer carriers would be forced to complete and pass their own medical screening before they were sent out to meet the public. And according to the Postal Plan's estimates, the equivalent of 2 normal daily delivery routes could be managed by one carrier volunteer within an 8 to 10 hour period, since the same quantity of material will be delivered to each residential delivery point, and only residential addresses are included. Yeah, okay.
God.
One reason for the speed is that it only aims to cover single-family residences, condos, and apartments. Quote, a uniform, predetermined quantity of prepackaged medications, vaccines, or test kits will be delivered to each residential mail address along with information sheets provided to postal carriers. It explains delivery does not include P.O. boxes or general delivery to institutions like nursing homes, universities, prisons. Presumably, authorities would make other plans to deliver the needed medicine in quantity to those larger institutions. The plan imagines that the Postal Service's efforts would be paid by the Department of Health and Human Services via the Stafford Act, the powerful emergency disaster legislation that governs much of the federal government's response to everything from tornadoes to pandemics, and that it would only disturb mail delivery for a day or two in the targeted region. Okay, so what we learned there was that there is already a postal plan already set. It's been established for decades. And that me and other mail carriers in the United States would have to suspend and forego all of our normal daily working activities in order to distribute self-administered test kits or vaccines to every single household on a single given day within probably a 2 to 3 day period, although knowing the government, they'll probably expand it to be an entire week. So that's there. That plan is already there. Now I want to show you this. This article. Okay, wait, that's the one we just looked at. I want to show you this.
Yo, is your background the North Hollywood bank shooting?
Yeah, that was my background, yeah.
Yo, I fucking love that story, dude.
That's a crazy one, right?
Yeah, let's just to lighten it up a little bit for a second. I tried to do an episode on that because I know the story pretty well, and like those guys were fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like that Emil guy, supposedly right before he died, after he got shot, he said, "Shoot me in the fucking head. Shoot me in the head." Like, yeah. That is some like the whole, you know, right before you die, you better say some Mark Twain shit. Yeah. That is some fucking Mark Twain shit to me. Like, for that real. Is like,
dude, that story is insane. And of course, if you think about the date and, you know, the time of that event kicking off, that fucking North Hollywood robbery, it was right after that. Because, dude, police forces were like, how do we deal with this?
Yo, if you have, those fools made their own armor, fucking modified their own weapons. They were fucking smart.
They could buy dudes, as many of as they wanted.
For dudes who are on fucking Quaaludes and barbiturates, they knew what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah. And like, so that was when police forces got militarized after that. They're like, this shit can happen. So this shit can happen all the time.
That story's so cool to me, and like, it sucks that, I mean, I guess I sound shitty saying that, but it sucks that no cops died. like
that's awful.
Like,
dude.
I know, but it's like fuck the police force. And when you hear that, you're like when I first heard about that story when I was younger, I was like, so a bunch of cops died? And my dad was like, no one fucking died except the 2 fucking guys that were doing it. So I tried to dig in more to like their lives, and there's just nothing. No one ever got to interview really the families and find out like more about those dudes' stories, because they were like guerrilla warfare in LA.
Right.
Like they were like the fucking not Viet Cong, but like shit, like just like their own paramilitary, but it was just them two, which is fucking cool. Like you and your homeboy just decide to start your own fucking military, basically.
Right. Fucking North Hollywood robbery aside, which is a great fucking little breath. But I want to get back to that thing. So what we were just talking about was the postal plan, which is going to basically empower, deploy the post office to distribute what I believe is going to be self-administered test kits, probably maybe not on this round, but the next round, because I know that this whole thing is going to happen again. Mm-hmm. This is just the test. What's happening right now, they're looking to see how willing they, the big they, whoever they are. Mm-hmm. I'm so sick of the they.
Yeah.
But they are there. And they are who they are, whoever they are. If they're what David Icke thinks is a small handful of globalist collective assholes mm-hmm. who are running everything, which I don't discount, but I also believe that there's a lot more than just people in a dark, smoky room. There's a lot more to be gained. But whoever they are, they're, from what I've heard, and I've had some contacts to the other side, if you will, not necessarily of this world. And the messages that I'm getting from the other side in different worlds is that this is all to basically measure fear, to see how willingly we will give up our sovereignty, our mm-hmm. will, through fear, and how long that fear can be sustained, and what are the consequences of that fear. But so moving on past that, we've already established what's going to happen with the postal plan and that kind of thing. So this article came out about a day before that article, and this was in Politico, which is not it's a no bullshit article. It's a no bullshit magazine, whether or not you believe everything. I don't, but I do like to read some of it because I think it's a pretty established thing. House panel warns coronavirus could destroy the Postal Service by June. And the top, headline quote is, "It has become clear that the Postal Service will not survive the summer without immediate help," says Representative Carolyn Maloney. It's a short article. The U.S. Postal Service could be gone by June unless Congress immediately delivers billions of dollars to counteract the impact of the coronavirus crisis, a House Committee chairwoman warned Monday night. Based on a number of briefings and warnings this week. Okay, so based on a number of briefings and warnings this week about a critical fall-off in mail across the country, which I'm just going to pause it right there for a minute and say that is absolute bullshit. There is, I can tell you from firsthand experience, there has been and is not any fall off in mail. There might be fall off in letters and that kind of mail, but the mail is a completely different story now. It's all about packages. It's packages and mail, but I'm still delivering. I'm sure you still get a handful or a few pieces of garbage every single day.
Oh, yeah.
There's no fall off in mail. So that's more propaganda. But moving on, number of briefings and warnings. Okay, briefings and warnings from who and about what? Again, out of context, there's no context there to what briefings and warnings are. But I'm going to take it as the words are written. About critical fall-off in mail across the country, it has become clear that the Postal Service will not survive the summer without immediate help from Congress. That's what Carolyn Maloney says. Maloney, who is joined in the statement by Representative Gary Connolly, Democrat, Virginia, indicated, and of course, both of these people are Democrats. One out of New York. This is the Congress chairwoman, oversight chairwoman from New York, and Representative Connolly from Virginia, both Democrats. I'm not pointing fingers or punching fists in the air against Democrats, but I'm just saying this. Whatever.
Yeah.
These people both indicated that the Postal Service has seen a, quote, drastic reduction in volume and it could shutter by the summer without intervention, a collapse that could, among other things, jeopardize access to mail-order prescription drugs. Now remember that, okay? These are two Democrats that are saying that the Postal Service has seen a drastic reduction in mail volume and that the whole organization could be done for by summer without intervention, without big government stepping in and loaning or giving billions of dollars, and that could jeopardize access to mail-order prescription drugs. Think about those two words, prescription drugs. That's medicine. That's medical supplies.
Yeah.
For millions of Americans, especially in rural communities. A Postal Service shutdown would also affect the ability of voters to cast ballots by mail. No one cares about that. They care about drugs.
Yeah.
Maloney and Connolly noted that, okay, this is critical because I want to show you how this is filled with holes in the next thing I'm going to show you. Maloney and Colony noted that the House's $2.5 trillion coronavirus relief package would send $25 billion, remember that number, to the Postal Service in emergency funding and eliminate the Postal Service's $11 billion debt. The measure, because the post office is broke, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
The measure would reset the Postal Service's borrowing limit to 15. The Postal Service to create, quote, temporary delivery points, think about fulfillment centers, and establish flexible staffing procedures. That's basically hiring a whole crew of brand new people with very minimal training them for a specific job, and as soon as that objective has been fulfilled, they're done. That's temps, hiring temps, or suspending mail for a couple days to allow everyone that's employed, over 600,000 carriers, to do this particular job, and then when that job is done, they go back to business as usual. Establish flexible staffing procedures if the novel coronavirus affects its operations. The Postal Reorganization Act of 1970 turned the Postal Service into an independent agency within the U.S. government that was primarily responsible. Anyway, primarily responsible for funding itself, something that has become harder since the internet era led to a dramatic drop in the volume of mail. Beyond that, the Postal Service has been required since 2006 to pay at least $5.5 billion annually to pre-fund retiree benefits. Now, I'm going to pause it right there for a minute and say that this statement is absolutely true. That's why the post office is broke, because Congress mandated the post office to pre-fund my whole career, my whole pension. So, you know how you say you work for a union, you work for a company, and you have a retirement package, a 401k, that for the amount of hours that you work, a certain percentage is then extracted and put toward that 401k, and you build up that 401k depending on the number of hours that you work over the course of a career. That doesn't exist with the post office. The Congress mandated that the post office fulfill all of those pensions all at once, initially and immediately for every single employee.
So it's already set in stone.
So it's already there. So my entire pension is set and insured and in the bank. All I have to do is go to work for the next 30 years. I don't have to earn into any sort of retirement. My entire retirement is already pre-funded. And there's all kinds of theories about why that happened, and I'm not going to get into that. It's beside the point. The real interesting information here is prioritizing medical deliveries, $25 billion to the Postal Service from this $2.5 trillion corona relief package, temporary delivery points, flexible staffing procedures. Okay, so those are critical things to remember for just a few minutes, and then I'm going to get to, I want to show you this screenshot. Okay, this is a screenshot that my homeboy that is involved in the union that I work for, who's also a letter carrier, this is a screenshot from the relief package that just got passed a couple days ago. The historic $2.5 trillion relief package. I want you to pay attention to this here. 5B, additional borrowing authority, notwithstanding Section 205 of the Title 39 United States Code, for any other provision of law, if the Postal Service determines that due to the COVID-19 emergency, the Postal Service will not be able to fund operating expenses without borrowing money. Number one, the Postal Service may borrow money from the Treasury in an amount not to exceed $10 billion. So, what we just read was that the Post Office needs $25 billion to eliminate its debt and sustain and eliminate the borrowing cap and sustain this new potential medical emergency type of operation. But instead of $25 billion, they only got $10 billion. So where did the other $15 billion go? Was it ever even allotted? Why did it get reduced from 25 to 10? Those are the questions that I have.
Yeah.
But moving on. So 1A, $10 billion to be used for such operating expenses and which may not be used to pay any outstanding debt of the Postal Service. So they got $10 billion to be used for operating expenses, but may not be used to pay any outstanding debt. So the $25 billion that was requested from this relief package was supposed to be used to pay off the debt, to make the post office whole, and sustain a new operation. But they didn't. expenses, and the debt still is withstanding. And now going from 1 to 2, the Secretary of the Treasurer may lend up to the amount described in paragraph 1, $10 billion, at the request of the Postal Service upon terms and conditions mutually agreed upon by the Secretary and the Postal Service. Prioritization of delivery for medical purposes during COVID-19 emergency, notwithstanding any other provision of law during the COVID-19 emergency, the Postal Service, 1, shall prioritize delivery of postal products for medical purposes. 2, may establish temporary delivery points in such form and manner as the Postal Service determines necessary to protect employees of the Postal Service and individuals receiving deliveries from the Postal Service. So I know that it's all legal and it's all the way that they write this shit to be confounding and stupid and dumb, but what we're learning here is that the Postal Service needs $25 billion. They only got 10. The debt that the Postal Service has still withstands, and this $10 billion is contingent on the prioritization of delivery for medical purposes during COVID-19 emergency. So what that means to me is that the fucking postal plan is a go.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a solid. They've already got this thing in the works. We know, because we've seen them, convoys of military vehicles moving in and out of towns, generally in the dead of night, although I've seen some images and videos taken during the day.
The ones I saw were during the day.
Yeah, of trains miles long full of military vehicles that are not, I mean, there's tanks, there's some friendly-looking ones, and there's not so friendly-looking ones. They're the exact same vehicles we see on the front lines in Afghanistan and Syria. They're the same vehicles. The only thing that's different is that a lot of these vehicles have generators on the back. So why are there tens of thousands, potentially, generators moving in and out of counties and states?
What do you need the generators for?
What do you need the generators for? That system, there's a whole new way that we're looking at each other. We're through the door now.
Yeah.
We're through the door, and the fucking turnstile behind us is locked. There's no more jumping back. Everything is going to change. It's changing right now. So I'm trying to tell my little girl, you know, and she's not scared of anything, which is fucking awesome. But what I'm trying to tell her is that, honey, the world is changing really fast right now. And sometimes the world changes really slowly, but right now it's changing really, really fast. And then you got Bill Gates, who 4 days ago, this article was produced on Oregon Live here in Oregon, the Oregonian.
Mm-hmm.
The headline of the article, well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So what we've established now is that there is already a plan in place for the post office to be the arm of the government to ensure that exact action, that exact operation. There was no money to bail out the post office. That was all wishful thinking. But the $10 billion put in place to ensure that the new normal will carry on, that the post office will be armed and ready and funded and guarded by military people and medical professionals to make sure that everyone gets their test kit or their vaccine at every household. And you think about that in conjunction, I'm sure you've got them, dude, that right now there's a census going on.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten the census paperwork?
My mom got it in the mail. Yeah.
Word. So think about that, dude. So that's a fucking head count.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Obviously, maybe we're long overdue for a census count. I don't know. I don't keep up with that shit. I don't fucking care. But I find it really convenient and interesting that there's a census going on right now, which is a head count to see exactly how many bodies are in each household, which to me equates to how many kits do we have to make?
Yeah.
How many people are living in each household, so we know exactly how many vaccines we have to have for this particular carrier, this letter carrier's route, because we know that in this household it's one address, but now we know that there's 5 people living there, so we have to have 5 vaccines ready for that one household. We have to have, it's just, to me, it just makes perfect sense that the timing of this couldn't be better, because now that it's a national pandemic and a global pandemic and a global response to something, that there's so many other things going on and so much money going around that really anything goes. There's so many other things that are happening behind the scenes. And then you have Bill Gates, this one little article This was 4 days ago. Oregon, the Oregonian, Oregon Live. Bill Gates knew we weren't ready for a coronavirus pandemic. He says we must combat it with 6 to 10 weeks of lockdown and innovation. And I'm going to skip down to the very bottom of the article. Let's see. Midway through the article here, quote, "A big thing to do is to go along with the shutdown approach in your community so that the infection rate drops dramatically to let us get back to normal as soon as possible." Yeah, sounds great. The very next sentence, "Mass testing for the coronavirus is needed to inform social distancing measures. Whenever there is a positive test, it should be seen to understand where the disease is and whether we need to strengthen the social distancing." So wherever there is a positive test at your home, it should be seen, social distancing, community dictatorships, everyone will know, to understand where the disease is, your house, and whether we need to strengthen the social distancing. He goes on to say South Korea did a great job, blah, 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 blah. Gates said that the U.S. should be looking at 6 to 10 weeks in lockdown, if that is, the vast majority of people actually do hunker down and stay hunkered down. If social distancing efforts are ended too soon or are too leaky, infections will leap back up. Hospitals will be overwhelmed, and communities will have to start over with their shutdowns, making the economic damage all the worse. I'm going to skip down to here. This, I think it's toward the end of the article. "A vaccine for the coronavirus probably won't be ready to roll out for around 18 months, which I think is absolutely bullshit. I think they already have a vaccine for it, and God knows what the fuck is in it."
I was going to mention that earlier. I feel like it takes a lot longer to make a vaccine than 12 months. So, like, if they are about to issue a vaccine, it's been ready. It's been ready.
Well, exactly. And this is where it gets me to the very next thing. Around 18 months, possibly a lot longer, health experts say, people that aren't in the know. But Gates argued that even if a vaccine proves particularly difficult to create for this virus, therapies could be developed soon that would reduce the number of people who need intensive care, including respirators. He points out that his foundation has organized a therapeutic, whatever. He goes on and on and on. This is the part that I found the most chilling about this little article that came out 4 days ago in the Oregonian. The very last paragraph. Bill Gates said in the talk, so this goes back to, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up just a minute, whoever's listening to this, second to last article. Perhaps the best lesson to learn from all of this goes back to Gates's 2015 TED Talk, so 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Bill Gates was talking about this on the TED Talk. We should start putting together procedures, policies, and funding, put that in place so we're better prepared for the next pandemic. He said this 4 years ago. Gates said in that TED Talk that governments need to plan for pandemics in the same way they do for war. For soldiers, we have full-time personnel waiting to go. We have reserves that can scale us up to large numbers. NATO has a mobile unit that can deploy very rapidly. NATO does a lot of war games. War games, I love that. NATO does a lot of war games to check. And are people well trained? Do they understand about fuel and logistics and the same radio frequencies? So they are absolutely ready to go. These are the kinds of things we need to deal with for an epidemic. He was talking about this 4 years ago, talking about how a vaccine won't be ready for 18 months. And he's already talking about how well prepared military institutions and organizations are to handle such epidemics. And as we've learned from the last few articles that I shared with you, that the idea of a military response not only is possible, but it's already in action, that there are already deployed troops. And as people are posting on YouTube, because you'll never see any of this on anything close to mainstream, of tanks lined for miles with military vehicles, generators, going in and out of townships, counties, states. Where are they going to? Where are they coming from? What are they doing? and knowing what we learned about the Postal plan and the $10 billion set aside to operate a specific action within the post office to make sure that all of us get our test kits and or vaccines, test kits first, and in my opinion, followed by vaccines, accompanied by armed military officers. I mean, what we're looking at here is, man, dude, we're fucking looking at a first trial run to see who actually stays inside right now, who's afraid, how afraid are they, what are they buying, what are they hoarding, how many people are going to the gun store, how many people are using their credit cards, possibly, probably not cash unless they're fucking smart, to buy guns, to buy ammunition, to see that we're all hoarding toilet paper. It's depressing and embarrassing to me to know that the toilet paper crisis is the thing to talk about. That is such a fucking narrative.
That's what everyone was talking about. Even the normies at work, like in the office, people were like saying, "I can't find fucking toilet paper and hand sanitizer." Hand sanitizer. I just want to mention, I didn't see hand sanitizer in like public places until like 2005 or 6. Like,
word.
I didn't even know what the fuck it was. I was like, wash your fucking hands. What the fuck do you mean hand sanitizer?
Well, dude, you can't sanitize something that's not clean first.
Exactly. So you wash your hands and then use hand sanitizer.
So talk about if you can't wash your hands, use sanitizer. I guess, yeah, if you're camping.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to prevent
if you
germs
don't have a
spreading,
bathroom with soap.
I'm not going to say it's useless and stupid, but from what I've learned in my experience brewing beer and working with other types of grow operations and things and sanitization, especially if you're working chemically with chemicals or anything related to chemistry. I brewed beer for years, and if your equipment isn't clean, but you try to sanitize it, you're going to have infected beer. Your beer is going to go sour, and you might like that. It might be a good thing if you like that kind of beer. I don't really like that kind of beer, but what I've learned is you can't sanitize something that's not clean. So if your hands are dirty and you try to use sanitizer, all you're doing is drying out your fucking skin.
Yeah.
You're not killing anything.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's 60% alcohol. What the fuck, dude? I mean, what they should be providing people, if they really think this is going to help, if applying something that's not soap and water on your hands to kill a bacteria, what they should be supplying people is 70% isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing instead is 60% alcohol sanitizer.
I mean, I've also seen some pictures on social media of people who have been using the fuck out of hand sanitizer and their hands are dried out.
They're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude. And then another thing real quick, and I want to let you just take it from there, is, okay, so we have this fucking social distancing thing. We have this idea that there's whole towns in America right now. There are whole areas and towns and cities that are on total lockdown. Colorado and New York, and I don't even know, but the one that comes to mind right now is Colorado. That you're allowed 1 day a week to leave your house to go to the store and get groceries 1 day a week. The neighbors are ratting on each other. New York has a fucking a hotline you can call to rat on your neighbors because you're afraid because 3 people are getting together outside in their yard or walking around or jogging together and they're not 6 feet apart, and so you can rat.
That was that. Some weird shit happened at the end there. Got cut off. I'm not sure how we got cut off, but Dean was showing me an article and we got cut off, so who knows? So what's up, Dean? How you want to end this?
What's up, man? I don't know. That was pretty bizarre. So I was showing you this video from Richie from Boston. He did this. He posted this 3 days ago. Troops are arriving everywhere, and we watched a little video. And I'm kind of afraid to replay it. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I don't want to break any rules. I don't know if you're going to put this on YouTube or not. I mean, I think you should.
Yeah, I am.
But
for
anyway,
sure.
Richie from Boston has a video from 3 days ago called "Troops Arriving Everywhere. Wake the fuck up." Well, no F words, and it's pretty nuts, man. It's a lot of footage of people recording military convoys arriving on trains tons and tons and tons of patrol vehicles that you can see as far as you can see. And in the full-length video, there's generators attached to the back of these vehicles. And just before your computer shut down or froze or got interrupted, man, I watched your jaw hit your desk.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy shit. And they're talking about basically some of these articles that he's citing is that even if you're not showing any symptoms whatsoever, you're still sick. So the message is that if you're healthy, you're sick. And with everything that we've talked about in this conversation, as far as the plan to put, authorities in place to make sure that we are terrified at home, following rules, and that this is the new normal, it's not unusual at all that we would see this kind of reinforcement. I mean, Bill Gates was talking about this 4 years ago at a TED Talk about how the military, the United Nations, NATO, National Guard, all these people are geared up and ready at a drop of a dime. And we're hearing that these things are already happening in other countries that America wants to compete with. We want to compete. We want to be those people. And even if we don't want to, our city, state, and federal governments and legislators are going to take their orders just like we are. And if we are being ordered to stay home and do this and dance that and move your arm and pat your head and rub your belly at the same time, so will our politicians and so will our leaders. So as long as the marching orders get passed down for us to do what we're supposed to do, we're going to do what we're supposed to do. As much as I would love to say, fuck that, I don't really feel like we're going to have much freedom to do that.
See, and now I want to look at this military thing as maybe a positive, because I know it's not, but I'm just going to entertain it. What if they're scared of some other type of warfare, maybe weaker countries going after, or stronger countries going after weaker countries, fights at home, like fights on our turf. Like, could it just be a preparation for that? Or is it going to be, are they going to be militarized? Are they going to be policing us, or are they going to be here as a defense?
Well, this is the kind of thing I find really interesting. I'm glad you asked that, because no one seems to be asking that. I'm asking that question is because now we have a global pandemic, and all rules of constitutionality, whether it's the United States or the UK or India or Iran or China, all of our predetermined and pre-established rights as individuals, and even individuals in the collective nation as a sovereign state, all those things are now subject to change. And so this is a perfect opportunity for a change. And I don't know about you, dude, but I've been wanting change for a long time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have been wanting change for a long time. I don't think anyone expected it was going to come this fast or look like this. But what I find really interesting is that there are so many people that are still holding on to a obviously falling, destroying system that never served them or satisfied them in the first place.
Yeah. So
why are people? This is the thing. I mean, I already recorded a bunch of stuff about this before. I just haven't published it because I don't know if I need to. But why are so many people begging and demanding more and more government oversight? People are clamoring and demanding that we stay locked down even more, even longer. People are now mad at Trump because he wants to have hope, but unfortunately, I mean, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, no.
People are hoping that things are going to get back to normal fast, and they're not going to.
No, they're not.
This is the new normal. This is the new way. And so many people are just grasping and holding on to a system that has failed them and is now failing itself, and it's a system that never satisfied them to begin with. Exactly. So this is a great opportunity, and I'm very hopeful for the future, which again, hope isn't a strategy, but I'm optimistic that in this kind of destructive change, like a forest fire that decimates an area, there's always going to be new growth afterward. And we have an opportunity right now to decide how we want that change to be and come about, and what we want that change to look like.
Agreed. I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's so hard to stay positive right now. It's like almost that's the point.
Yeah, that is the point.
Is to put everyone in a negative outlook, so
Yeah.
they're more vulnerable, and they're more, as faith is not a strategy, hope is not a strategy, but people need it. People always will need it.
People will need it, and they'll always have it. And
Yeah.
for so many people, that is the only thing. That's because, and again, that's another weird thing about this strange postmodern society that we live in, is that people have forfeited their own personal power and sovereignty and ability in favor of faith
Mm-hmm.
and in favor of hope. They feel like everything good that's happened to them is God's will, or someone's, because of someone else, you know. Whether it's good or bad, it's because of someone else. It's not because of themselves. And I think this is a really good opportunity to look ourselves in the mirror and take responsibility for our actions. And I mean, I'm not a prepper. I don't have fucking, cases of cans of beans and a whole room full of toilet paper. I don't even own a gun, you know? And a few weeks ago, this is fucking funny. A few weeks ago, I was at a store and I was holding a bunch of Glocks in my hand, trying to decide if I should maybe get a gun.
How'd it feel?
But I didn't even think, dude, I didn't even think to do a background check when I was there.
Yeah.
And now I don't have any time to get to the store.
Yeah.
Let alone do the background check. And the background check will take at least 2 or 3 days here in Oregon. So
dude,
I know that I'm good and clean as far as I know. But what if I'm not? What if I go and do a background check and finds out that for some reason the government doesn't want me to own a gun?
I think it's only if you're a felon. I think that's the only thing that would prevent you from, if you're a convicted felon, I think that's the only thing that would prevent you from buying a handgun.
Right. But I guess the point of what I'm saying is this is a great opportunity, man. This is a great opportunity, not just for those supposed global elites, those smoky backroom motherfuckers that want to see us all in chains and in shackles, eating, brown mush out of wooden bowls and gray uniforms. But also it's a great opportunity for each of us as sovereign individuals to actually become friends with that sovereignty and that responsibility, and take that responsibility for ourselves and our families, and see and really, really take this time to create. This is the thing that I heard from the other side, from the other worlds, that were basically telling me in so many words that this is a time not of destruction, but of creation. And so we have to create our new world, because the old way is never, ever, ever coming back. We have to let go of it and let it literally wash down the stream, because it is going, it's going, and we have to let it go with the flow. We have to also go with the flow, but still maintain a sovereignty and be buoyant in the flow, so we can create and find our own land again and decide what kind of a world we want to live in. Do we want the government to step in and give us this fucking money that's not going to matter? It's not going to bail anyone out.
Yeah.
Do we want to hoard everything from each other? Do we want to be afraid of our neighbors? I don't. But I think people like you and I are really the minority.
Right.
I think most people are really so used to being told what to do and being assured that it's all going to be okay. And then they turn around and get lied to, and they say, that's okay because I'm too fucking stupid to do anything for myself anyway. So I'll just continue to eat shit, trusting and hoping that a bigger, badder bully has their best interest for me.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to, one final statement. I hope that all of this is a good thing in the end. If it is a restructure of everything that we know, of life as we know it, if it's a restructure of that, I would love for it to be a good thing. But from what we're seeing now, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be very kind to us.
Not at first.
Yeah. It's going to, no matter what, it's going to take adjusting to. And we didn't even get to go over the 5G stuff, man. Maybe I'll call you tomorrow and we'll talk about that.
I'm into that, dude. I'm into that. I got some ideas about that.
Hell
for sure.
All right, dude.
For sure.
It was great talking to you, Dean. Always a pleasure, man. You're my boy.
Dude. Yeah, man. Super good talking to you, Brian. I really appreciate it, dude. I have love for you and your family. I hope you guys can stay cool and keep yourself calm. And remember, man, to just try to fucking be happy, man. Like what they're looking at, what they're really measuring is fear.
Fear and anger.
Fear, anger, and anxiety.
Yeah.
All those super low frequency things, that's what they're really measuring to see who's got it, how they're reacting. So just don't give them what they want, even if you have to trick yourself into having a good time, you know?
Yeah.
Just be kind to yourself and love your family.
Hell yeah.
And really, more importantly than anything else, dude, is touch each other, hold each other, have physical contact with one another, because that is the biggest message that's being going around now, is that physical contact is the enemy. And you and I both know that that is a lie.
Yep.
That physical contact, affection, and contact with another human body is the only real medicine.
Yeah.
So hold your wife, hold your kid, kiss them all over their face, you know, hold their hand, do whatever the fuck you gotta do, but remain in contact with the people that you love, man.
Hell yeah, man. I agree, dude. All right, dude. It was great, man. I'll get it back to you. I'll probably call you tomorrow.
Cool. Right on, dude. Right on, Brian.
All right, man. Have
Take
a good
care,
night.
Man. Have a good night. Thanks so much for fucking being so awesome and rad and open.
Dude,
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. We're in the same boat, man. We're on the same team.
Word.
All right, doggy.
Word.
Stay up.
All right, dude. Good night, my friend.
You too.
So there it is. That was it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it through all the way, I know it was really long. I mean, it just kept going. We just couldn't. I couldn't stop talking about it. My bad about the technical difficulties. We had a little bit of problem there towards the end where the video cut out. Some weird shit happened. I heard a noise outside. But yeah, so thank you. I hope to have more discussions like this, especially with Dean. Dean's a great researcher, and I want everyone to check out his podcast, Up is Down. Please, it's on Apple, all that shit. I think it's on Spreaker too. Go ahead and give that dude a listen, because he's a very knowledgeable man and my homie. So thank you for watching. This is Philosopher Stoned. Aye, motherfuckers.